3.
Data analysis complete. Here it comes.
Oh, now you're back.
Oh,
What were you about to say?
I said start the timer when I start moving. When Link gets out of bed.
Okay. Okay.
So we're
Alright,
doing
I'll mute myself.
SDA timing.
Alright, cool. Alright, I'll mute myself and you'll be on stream.
Okay.
Good luck.
This stream is buffering. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, so real quick, there's a 2-minute intro that I can't skip since I'm starting on a new file. So I guess while I'm going through that, we'll talk about the game. So here we go. All right, hello everybody. This is my Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance. I'm M238. So this is the Game Boy Advance remake of the Super Nintendo Link to the Past game. Came out in 2001, 2000, and 2000, I believe. Can't say for certain. So this version is despised a lot by a lot of Link to the Past runners. They don't like it's mainly because of the sound effects of this game. This game has pretty great sound effects. So. I apologize if by the end of the run your ears can't take it anymore, but that's how the Game Boy Advance is. That's how the Game Boy Advance is. So yeah. But I'm gonna be running the Game Boy Advance version. It's very underrated. I like it more because I think the music sounds better. I like it has a better control scheme in my opinion. And it's a lot faster pace. So the run's about to begin pretty soon. As you can see, the text is really fast. Okay, so time will begin in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so right off the bat, we have a route difference. As you can see, I get the lamp right there in Link's house. It's a little bit faster. Because any item that you get heals your magic. Any item that you get that uses magic fills up your magic bar. And the lamp actually does damage in this version. So I can take advantage of that by bringing down these bushes right here. And it's a lot faster than picking up the bushes and throwing them. So what I'm doing right now, you may or may not hear it at the moment, but I'm actually mashing on my D-pad, and that's to Link's movement pattern alternates between 1 or 2 pixels per frame. So when Link is moving up or left, I'm actually attempting Link to move 2 pixels for every time I'm mashing. So we're talking about saving frames. Now it doesn't seem like much, but overall in the course of the run, it saves it saves around a few seconds. So now we're here in Hyrule Castle. And we have our first required enemy. Okay, cool. That strat that I did is the most consistent way to go about with that. There's a faster strat that saves a few frames, but it's a lot more hard. It's definitely a lot harder. Okay, so there's a few different room strategies. Here's the first one from the Super Nintendo version. You have to go a little bit. You have to be down a little bit down right there. In the Super Nintendo version, you have to do something a little bit different. Oops. Okay, so that chest right there contains a boomerang, and this gets asked a lot by a lot of Link to the Past runners, or by a lot of new runners. Why do we skip the boomerang? And that's because you can get an upgraded boomerang later on. And so it saves time rather than just upgrading it later. Alright, so I kill that green guard because if I don't kill him, he'll get in my way later. Okay, so that's our first mini boss right there, the ball and chain guard. And there's a few different ways you can go about with him. The way that I did it is the fastest way, and it is really risky. It just saves a few frames over the second fastest strategy. Many people throw like a pot at him and do 4 slashes, which is safe. And the chest that's in Zelda's jail contains a blue rupee since I got the lamp, and that's usually where you would get the lamp in the SNES version. All right, so now that we have Zelda, we have to take her to the sanctuary. And this is where you could lose little bits of time here in the mandatory escape sequence. You'll see me either hold left or right from these stairs that lead into different floors. And that's because any down input causes Link to move half a pixel from the stairs. So by pressing left or right for a few frames, I eliminate that stair lag. Alright, so you need Zelda and the lamp to actually push this shelf right here. Now I'm playing on Japanese, and in the Super Nintendo version, there's some tricks that you could do that only work in Japanese. And so overall, that saves like maybe a minute or a minute and a half, I think. For this version, you can't do any of those. Those have been patched in this version. However, Japanese still saves time only by like maybe 2 or 4 seconds. That is my estimate. I haven't timed it, but yeah, it saves just very little bit, or just a very little bit of time. So you can still get world record, even on English. So pumping actually helps in water because you move really slow in the water. So by doing wall pumping and air pumping, saves a little bit of time. Ah, dang. So that key rat can give you a few things of art. That key rat can be random. The worst you can get was what I got, and that was the top right or the top left position. That's pretty bad. Oops. It's okay. I pressed down a little bit too early. You can skip that text. It loses like half a second since I got that. It loses like a second, I think, in the SNES version because of how much slower the text is. Alright, so we're out of the escape. And now I'm gonna get this heart container. That heart container is commonly gotten in most categories because it's a really good safety item. It only takes a few seconds to get, so it's not a bad choice to get it, even in any percent. So now we're gonna make our way to the first dungeon, and that is Eastern Palace. And while we're going through Eastern Palace, not really much going on, but I guess now, but it's a good time to talk about the category. And the category I'm running is 100%. And so 100% includes getting all the heart containers. So we're gonna be getting all 20 hearts. We're gonna be going through all the dungeons. We're gonna be getting all the items and all the items in their max upgrade. Other things that you won't see me do is you will not see me go over every single room. You will not see me open every single chest. And there's something called the Pawn of Happiness, where you can upgrade your bombs and arrows. We don't go for that. It takes like 14,000 rupees, I believe, to get them fully upgraded like that. So, and it's just doesn't really add anything into your pause menu, which is why we don't go for it. And this category is it's a very non-competitive category because of 2 parts of the game that make the category not so fun, and that's the digging game and the chess game. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna challenge you guys to donate $5 for every time I get a blue ball from Aghanim, every time I fail a digging game attempt, and every time I fail a chess game attempt. Who's willing to take that? If you're willing to take that, then take your guesses on what my RNG is gonna be. Anyway, so this is Eastern Palace. It's pretty straightforward. There's not really much going on. Coming up is actually our first sequence break of the game. And hopefully I get it. Nice, okay. So what I did is I used the invincibility frames from that Popo to grab the pot surrounding by the anti-fairy that the anti-fairies are surrounding, to hit that switch and then get the big key early. Otherwise, you have to kill all the enemies in that room, and that takes a significant amount of time to do. Alright, so we got the bow. And the bow is gonna be our key to going through the rest of the dungeon here. Oops. Surprisingly, I have a lot of rupees. The rupee route, you want to rely on a blue rupee drop. And I have a lot of rupees, so we're good for now. This room right here is random, but we got through it just fine. Okay, so coming up is our first boss fight. And that is Armos Knights. There's a certain setup here, if I can get it. Ah, I messed it up. That's okay. Basically, what you want to do is you want to set it up so that the last Armos Knight doesn't turn red. And if he turns red, he gains all of his health back. So what I tried to do was shoot 2 arrows on the Armos Knight that's going to be the last one. But I messed up, so I didn't get it. That's okay. That only loses like a few seconds. And I have 0 arrows, so I'm gonna have to go get a safety arrow later on next dungeon. So now that we got the first pendant out of the 3 pendants that we're getting, we can go ahead and talk to Sahasrahla right there and get the Pegasus boots. And the Pegasus boots allow us to dash and run really fast. So now pumping, we're not gonna be doing a lot of pumping. And with the Pegasus boots in the SNES version, you can do something called super speed, where you dash 1 frame after you're spin attacking, and then you can move, and then you can walk really fast. But that doesn't work in this version, so we're gonna have to go with the old method. And that's by dashing all over the place, and that's okay. So similar to Ocarina of Time's rolling, there are times where you don't want to dash because you have to take in consideration of the starting animation when you're dashing. So the general rule for dashing is you want to dash if you have 4.5 tiles of free space for you to move. Other times you want to dash is if you have less than that, or if you're gonna get hit. Okay, so we got the Book of Medora, and that's our key to enter our next dungeon. So now the rest is just straightforward. There's a heart piece below the library that I could get right now, but I'm gonna get it later because it's faster that way. Ah, whoops. So you can see that this is a really fast version. The screen scrolling is actually really fast. So that's something you have to get used to if you're used to doing the Super Nintendo version. So this is where we use the book on that tombstone. You have to translate some Hylian letters. Alright, and here we are into the second dungeon, which is Desert Palace. Desert Palace really demonstrates how useful it is to dash around. Otherwise, if you're walking all over the place in this dungeon, then that's really slow. It can be a little bit confusing. As you can see, we have a bunch of rooms here, but we know the fastest way around. And I mash book because it makes a great sound. Okay, so this room is normally RNG. Those cannonballs can normally get in your way, but in this version, you will always dash right through, and there's a low % chance where there will be a cannonball on your way back, but it's not too bad. Most pots that you see me pick up are either bombs or arrows, because we'll be needing a lot of those throughout the run. Also, pumping works on doorways, so you'll see me you'll see me pump on doorways. You'll see me well, I'm wiggling my D-pad on doorways that face left or up. And also for stairs, I'm mashing left and right while going upstairs, and that's a little bit faster. If you're doing that while going downstairs, you move slower. Okay, so down here, you want to be careful because you don't want to fall off the edge right here. Otherwise, you waste like a minute or so because you have to do the dungeon all over again to get back up here. And I get that heart piece, and then we are on the second half of the dungeon. Oops. Normally you would bonk when you're dashing into key doors like that, but on your fourth pixel of your dash animation, it'll allow you to dash right through key doors. And usually there are objects indicating or that help you line yourself up to get a key dash. Okay, so since I had 0 arrows before, I'm gonna pick these arrows up because I like to have a lot of arrows. And that red Igor, sometimes depending on your movement, he can get you. Not much I can do about it. And now we have our second boss, and this boss is our first really difficult boss to get good at. I'm still not pretty good with this fight. Oh, yeah, good fight already. Takes 4 arrows per land mola, or 8 slashes, and dang. And this fight is also pretty random, so you could definitely lose a lot of time. If you're really good, you can get a 3 cycle. Okay, that's pretty acceptable. If you're really good, you get a 3 cycle. 4 cycles is pretty acceptable. 2 cycle is not possible in this version because when a boss is exploding, when they die, then you can't use your items at all, which is why this fight's really hard. In the SNES version, you can get a 2 cycle, but even then, that's really hard to do. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and head over here to this cave and get my second heart piece. There's 24 heart pieces in the game. I'll be getting all of them. World record for this category is 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 2 seconds by me. And the SNES world record is 141.53 by Zelna on SNES. Okay, so now we're gonna make our way to our third dungeon, and if you keep going to the right, you can go to Lake Hylia and perform a trick called Fake Flippers, where if you jump in the water on the very last pixel before the screen transition, you have 1 frame to screen transition, to jump in the water and screen transition, and then the game gives you flippers for whatever reason. The issue with that is that if you get hit while you're in the water, then your game soft locks, and your only way out of it is to save and quit. Save and quit's not allowed in this category, so it's a reset if that happens. But we're taking this path right here because we can't do that obviously in this version. And Fake flippers is really good because taking this path lags a lot on the Super Nintendo. But the Game Boy Advance version has absolutely no lag, which is really good. Okay, so we gotta go ahead and guide everyone's favorite character, the old man. And you can and if you dash with him, you go really fast. But I mean, none of us really do it because by the time we get to the old man, we're kind of tired of dashing. So we just take a nice walk in the dark cave. He tells you where to go, so it's pretty good if you ever get lost in here, which you shouldn't get lost in here. So now we go ahead and so we got the mirror, and the mirror is going to be very useful for most dungeons. Okay, so these boulders and the squirrels, they are random. There's not much you can do there's not much you can really do with the RNG that you get here in Death Mountain, because ooh, that's our first unintentional bonk, I think. The boulders bounce at random directions, and the squirrels move at random directions, and you can really lose a lot of health depending on what you get. And it's really bad, but thankfully it's not a big deal in this category because you get full hearts right there. And full hearts is really good for this dungeon because this dungeon is a pain in the butt sometimes. Most enemies that you see me kill are either required or they are just in my way, and I need to get them out of my way, like that. Okay, so we have the tile room. It is probably the only auto-scroller in the game, I think. There's no way you can speed it up, so any mistake that you see me make here does not lose any time at all. But I'm gonna perform this right here, and if you're standing on the spots where the pegs will rise up, you'll have invincibility frames until you get off. So I can just sit here and relax, and it's a safe method because if you're not careful in this room, you'll die. So I can just sit here, relax, check my social media if I want to, and now I'm done. Oops! Oh, I didn't get hit by it. Okay, that's weird. Okay. That's how useful a lamp is in this version. I just killed that Stalfos with the lamp. Okay. Now we come to the main part of the Tower of Hera, or Mountain Tower, as the game calls it. There's a faster strat with this room, but it's really difficult. And so far I still have full hearts, which is really good. All right, here's our next sequence break coming up. First off, I'm gonna get past here. We call this a petting zoo, because these snakes can really ruin your day. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set myself up right here, do a little bonk, and there we go. That is a bomb jump. You can do that with pits that are 2 tiles wide like that. And the bomb just propels you across pits like that if you're standing on the edge of the pit, of a pit. And the bonk that I did allows me to allows better chances to propel myself upwards from the bomb, so it's a pretty weird trick. It's not the hardest thing to do. Also, when you saw me dash the bumper right there, that's not a. I'll talk about that after this fight because I hate this fight so much. Okay, good. All right. So when you saw me dash that bumper before this fight, that's not like a trick or anything. It's not a glitch or a trick. If you just line yourself up at a certain spot, you'll dash right through the bumper. And this fight right here, I hate this fight no matter how many times I do it, because you can lose a lot of time if you fall off, because if you fall off, he gains all of his health back, and you have to start the fight all over again, especially if you fall down the middle hole. If you fall down the middle hole, you fall on 2 floors, and that's really bad for you. So thankfully that didn't happen. Alright, so we get this heart piece now. In the SNES version, you can actually get that heart piece early, and that's by performing a trick called hovering, where the game recognizes you on a pit if you're standing on the pit if you're not dashing for more than a frame. So it's kind of a trick that no one really does, because if you don't get it, then you pretty much lose all the time that you would have saved. And so it's a very discouraging trick. Alright, so now that we have all 3 pendants, we can go ahead and make our way over here to Lost Woods and get the Master Sword. I'm getting that mushroom later. It'll be a little bit faster that way. Just a few frames. And one little cool thing to know about the Master Sword is that if you happen to take damage on your way here, then don't worry, because the Master Sword will heal you up, which is really nice. One thing to know about text is that every single button, except for start and select, can mash through text, including the D-pad. However, certain buttons mash through text faster than others. So for scrolling text like that, you'll see me mash the A button, because all the text will appear at once if you do that. And wow, okay. Then for text boxes, I'm mashing the R button. Okay, so I got that mushroom. That mushroom's actually going to be used for later. And then I come down over here to get this heart piece. And then now we're going to go ahead and make our way to Castle Dungeon. So we're going to go back to Hyrule Castle, but we can actually access the top floor of the castle now that we have the Master Sword. Alright, so coming up would be our first main instance of RNG, and that is blue balls. So everyone take your guess on how many blue balls I'm going to get. Up to a limit of 15. Okay, so we can go ahead and head down over here. Break this, and then voila! Welcome to the Castle Dungeon. Okay, so first things first, there's a faster strat with this, but it's super difficult to do. So I'm just gonna go ahead and deal with those guys just like that. Then I'm gonna deal with these guys with the spin attack. Alright, nice. Castle Dungeon's really painful to optimize because there's a lot of enemies in every room. And it's just really bad. Okay, that guy, no matter what, that guy will get in your way in this version, so I just deal with him. The Dark Maze is pretty painful. One thing to know about sword beams is that now that we have the Master Sword, we have sword beams if you have full health, and sword beams can actually attract these guards' attention. They can hear your sword beams, so if you shoot a sword beam, all the guards in the room will notice you. So you want to be careful of that. Oops. Okay. These two rooms with these two red guards can be a pain in the butt. So in this version, there's normally 2 red guards in this room, but there's only just that 1 guard in this version, which is really good because the second red guard will get in your way a lot in most runs, and it is a pain in the butt to deal with. And also, you're seeing me grab that key with the sword, and that's another thing that the SNES version can, or that's another thing the GBA version can do. You can pick up items. Well, you can pick up things, rupees, hearts, bombs, arrows, or keys, with a key or with your sword. So as long as the item's in sword range, you can go ahead and swing your sword, and you get the item, which is really nice. So coming up, we have Agnem, and Agnem is really random. So Agnem has a cycle of 5 attacks. So the first attack is always a guaranteed energy shot, like that. Then attacks 2 through 4 is either an energy shot or a blue ball, and it's 50-50. And then the 5th attack is a lightning. And then after that, the cycle resets. So, if you're really unlucky, then you have a very low % chance of getting 15 blue balls. If you're really lucky, then you have a 1 out of 16 chance, I think, to get 0 blue balls. In this case, I already got 1 blue ball. So, oh, that's 2. The average you can get is 3, and that's 1 blue ball per cycle. Well, that requires, oh, well, there's a 3rd one. So I got 3 blue balls now because this next shot is going to be an energy shot. So that's not too terrible. 3 is very common. If you get more than 5 or so, then the fight gets pretty painful. But there we go. So that's a pretty decent Aghanim fight. Alright, so make sure you come over here to get that heart piece before you miss it, because you can miss it, because it's not really in your path. Alright, so now we're in the Dark World, which is probably my favorite part of the game. This is where all the luck-based most of the luck-based parts are over now. So the Dark World is definitely more skill-based, with the exception of a few things that could happen. Other than that, it's definitely a lot harder, but there's not really a lot you can get screwed over by, so it's just a matter of execution. So we have this monkey right here, Kiki, who will... Oh, in addition to donating for bad RNG, you can put it towards whatever incentive that you want. Forgot to mention that. Save the animals. So anyway, so Kiki the monkey, you need 110 rupees to enter this dungeon. Otherwise, you have to look for some rupees, and that's a waste of time. If you get hit by him on your way to the dungeon, you have to pay 10 more rupees because you have to go back to the maze and find him and pay 10 more rupees, and then 100 rupees to open up the dungeon. So that's definitely something you don't want. Now I'm gonna try. Now it's important that I don't lose any hearts throughout this dungeon because it'll save time to later have, and so that I'll have hearts for the boss fight, because this next boss is a pain in the butt. So Dark Palace is pretty complicated in terms of puzzles. I definitely don't like Dark Palace. And coming up is a really difficult trick. And it saves 40 seconds if I can get it. So we'll see what happens from here. So I need a little bit of serious time. Oops, bonk. Alright, here we go. Yes. Okay, so we call that the hammer bomb jump. Basically, you need to stand at a very specific spot. Well, you need to first place a bomb at a very specific spot, and then you gotta place yourself at a very specific spot in order to clip through that railing. And it saves 40 seconds if you can get that. So that is, so I'm really glad I got that. It's harder in this version than in SNES. Well, it's harder depending on whatever visual cues you use, which I use the visual cue of the top of Link's sprite. That's usually how my visual cues work. And I just got a heart drop from that blue jelly, so I don't have to pick up any of those 3 hearts that are on there, so that's pretty lucky. If you don't get the bomb jump, then you have to go across the bridge, go to the right side, down to a basement. Grab a key, and then go through a dark maze. However, on your way, you can get 200 rupees, and that's generally what you want coming out of this dungeon. And I don't have 200 rupees, but I can get those rupees somewhere else. So we're good. And if you do end up getting 200 rupees, then you can skip getting a rupee chest. All right, this is good. That's actually a perfect turtle room. That turtle room can go wrong, depending on the RNG that you get from that. We call it turtle party if you don't get the perfect RNG. All right, so now we have Helmasaur. So Helmasaur, it takes 17 hits to break his mask, and then 8 slashes to break the to hit him on the next phase, unless you do a spin attack, which is what I did. So it's gonna take me 7. Every single one of his attacks take every single one of his attacks do 2 hearts of damage to you, and it's a painful fight, because what can happen is sometimes he can put you down to the bottom. Like, he can be there as well as tail whipping you, and then bring out those fires, and that can be really bad, and you can lose a lot of hearts. Also, another thing that you're seeing me do is whenever I catch a pendant or a crystal, I'm spin attacking right before I do that, and that saves 1 frame if you do it correctly. If you do it incorrectly, you lose 1 frame. It's just a weird thing that the game has. It's just these little time savers. I like saving time, so I just go for whatever saves time, as long as it's worth it. Alright, so now that we got through the first Dark World dungeon, we can do pretty much a lot of things in Dark World, which is what we'll be doing now. First off, I'm going to be getting 300 rupees. And that's by heading down over here. Those enemies can get in your way while you're waiting for this bomb to explode. Alright, 300 rupees. And this will help me for this for some mini games coming up now. So, coming up pretty soon is the digging game, the infamous digging game. So make your bets right now on how many digging tries I'm gonna get. Okay, so head up this way, and we're gonna go ahead and talk to this guy and grab the shovel. And the shovel is gonna be used to warp over here and dig up the flute right here, or the ocarina in Japanese. And the ocarina is going to be our biggest transportation, and you'll see why later. And I'm going to come down over here and get ourselves another heart piece, and then it is time for the digging game. So get hyped for that. Okay, so the way the dig game works is you have 1 out of 32 chance for each hole to get a heart piece. However, you cannot get a heart piece from the first 25 holes. So so you just want to dig as much holes as you can until you get a heart piece. And you dig a lot. And it's easier in this version because you dig a lot faster. So you can dig up to like 40 holes. In the SNES version, you can dig up to like 37, I think. And in addition to that, you can dig in 4 directions in this version, and you dig a lot faster. So it's definitely a lot easier in this version. And now I didn't get it. I didn't get it first try, so that's $5 donated for anybody. So you lose 40 seconds for every time you lose, every time you don't get the heart piece here. And there's not much you can do. If you're really unlucky, you can lose up to like 20 minutes. And it's a pretty sad day. But this music is really good, so you can sing along this music if you want. That's no second try. Once you get more than 3 digs, and that's when things start getting really painful. Do 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 do. There we go. All right. If you get the heart piece early enough, you can skip this text. You can skip this text of him saying that time's up. Have a good day. So there we go. We got third try. Not bad. So that's around a minute loss, a minute and a half loss there at most. Okay, so this is the time where you get this heart piece. You can, like I said, you can get this heart piece earlier, but this is a good time to get it, because otherwise you would have to go inside the house, bomb a wall, and then you'll make it to the other side. It's pretty slow. All right, so we could get these items way early on, like right after we got out of the escape. But this is the time we get them, because it's not worth walking around Kakariko Village without boots, because that's painful. So I'm gonna go down the stairs, get the bottle, and then I'm gonna go across the street and get Bugnet. Bugnet allows you to store things in your bottle, like fairies, bugs, I think fish. I don't remember for sure. So that's actually pretty useful, especially in a casual run. Then over here, I'm using my ocarina in front of this bird statue. I use it on the side of this bird statue, so then the bird leaves faster. Now there is a 6-second period where I can't use the ocarina, so while I'm waiting, I talk to this bottle vendor and get a second bottle. And then I use that opportunity to flute my way to destination number 2, which is the witch's hut, or Maple's hut, because the witch has a name in this version, which is Maple. And so I transfer the mushroom to the witch, that witch right there, and get magic powder. Magic powder allows you to turn anti-fairies into fairies, which is really good, because there's a quick anti-fairy I can get in the next dungeon that I'm heading to, and I'll be using that fairy because for a trick that requires a lot of intentional damage, and in case you mess that trick up, that fairy will come into play. Now, because this is a marathon, and I know that somewhere I'm going to mess up someplace else, I'm going to pick up a second fairy in a bottle, just to be safe. But we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so we're gonna go down the well, grab this next heart piece, and I'm gonna go ahead and pick up these rupees right here. Sometimes, if you're confident in your rupee count, you can skip a few of those red rupee chests, but we never know. You can dash do signs in this version, so you can which is how I'm able to dash do that without bonking. You have to do that strat a little bit differently in the SNES version. Okay, so coming up is the chess game. So make your guesses now on how many chess game attempts I'm going to get. And the chess game is pretty interesting. You have a 1 in 8 chance per chest to get a heart piece, and you can only open up 2 chests per attempt. So we'll see what happens. It's fast. It's an easier game, but you can still lose a lot of time depending on how many chess game attempts it's taking you. So Oh wow, 2 tries. Okay, that's actually pretty good. Alright. Not much I can do about that. Oh well. So, depending on how many rupees you get after the chess game, if you have like 600, if you have 600, around 600 rupees, then you can get this red boomerang after this next dungeon. Saves a little bit of time if you do it that way. But since I don't have that many rupees, I get that now, because after I go through this dungeon, I'm gonna be going for another 300 rupee chest. That's next door from this dungeon. So this is Thieves Town. This is actually your 4th Dark World dungeon. We're actually going in many different orders to go about with the dungeon order is weird. It's not the intended order, obviously, because it is a lot faster this way, and it makes certain other dungeons easier with the proper items and the proper health. So we want to do Thieves Town as early as possible, and it will make sense after the dungeon's over. So Thieves Town's actually really easy. There is one particular room coming up right now, and we call it the Hellway because it's hell. So we'll see what we get from here. Okay, nope, didn't. Okay. If you line yourself up perfectly on the exact middle of this road, then you can actually dash right through the room, no problem. However, not only is that precise, but it requires good RNG. Like, no enemy has to be in your way in order for that to happen, which is... you don't get it every time. Yeah. So typically in the Link to the Past community, I'm known as the luckiest Link to the Past runner, because I consistently get better than average RNG for every time I do 100% runs, most of the time. So yeah, we did a Link to the Past relay on August 6th, and I was the only runner who did 100%. Well, I was the only runner out of in the 100% category to get good RNG. So that's where I claimed that title. It was a lot of fun though. All right, so that fairy that I got there, I'll be using that for a trick that requires a lot of damage later on. Ooh, you can actually. Okay. You can actually go through that room without seeing any of the tiles break. We call it tileless, and that's how you know you go through that room fast. But one tile is decent enough. Alright, so coming up is our next boss. I'm gonna pick up this heart right here because I'm a noob. And this is Blind the Thief. Blind the Thief is really hard casually, but if you're doing the same strategy every single time, he is not the hardest. Good. All right. Nice. That's a good fight right there. All right. So that Thieves Town was pretty nice. That was a pretty good Thieves Town segment. Aside from hallway, I think. So, but overall, it's not too bad. These maiden cutscenes are really fast in this version. They usually take around 30 seconds per maiden cutscene, I believe, in SNES. I haven't timed it, but it takes a while. Okay, so the reason that we did Thieves Town is because we got the item called the Titansmiths, and the Titansmiths allows us to pick up these dark stones, and so that we can free this guy, this frog, who's actually really fast. And this frog is really important because he allows you to save so much time throughout the run. First up, I'm gonna go ahead and hammer all these pegs. It is really slow in this version, but don't worry, it's not too bad. In the SNES version, you do something called an item dash, where you dash and where you use an item and dash at the same time. So you can pretty much dash through all of these pegs in the SNES version, this by using that trick. But I can't do that, obviously, because it's patched. Okay, so this is the area where this becomes important. You need to pay 10 rupees. And then it takes a screen scroll or a mirror warp for your sword to be ready. We're actually going to upgrade our sword, and this is why it's useful. It's not required, but it saves a lot of time. Alright, so while we're doing that, we're going to actually jump down this well and upgrade our magic. This is called half magic. Half magic sounds really deceiving at first for a first-time player, because you think that your magic would be cut down by half, but no. Basically, what it allows every item that uses magic, you use half of the magic, which is really good. So it's a pretty good safety in any percent, where if you're not confident with conserving magic. Alright, so now we got our tempered sword, and so we can now do a lot more damage, which is really good. And with this purple chest, we can go ahead and flute over here to destination number 7, and grab ourselves a third bottle from this guy. So there are 4 bottles in this game. We'll be getting one more, and that last bottle isn't until much later. Yes, half magic is required for 100%. Alright, so coming up is now our third Dark World dungeon, and that is Skullwoods. And Skullwoods, in a casual run, is known to be an extremely confusing place, and it features the creepiest enemy in the entire Zelda series, known as the Wall Master, which are these hand enemies that come down from the ceiling. They can ruin your day, especially in this room. I have the red boomerang out because these mummies can really get in your way if you don't deal with them. Oh, okay. Almost got grabbed, but that's okay. Alright, pretty decent first room. This first room right here is a pain in the butt. I absolutely hate this room. We got through it no problem. In the SNES version, there's a chance where one of those enemies will block the doorway as you're coming into that room. But thankfully, that does not exist. There is no such thing as that in this version. Alright, so coming up is our next bomb jump. Hopefully I got it. Oh. Kinda too late. Okay, cool. That's the easiest bomb jump. And it saves having to fall down in the center hole from these 3x9 grass. And to get to the room that way. So Skullwoods is actually really not that hard in this version. So I'm not really too concerned with my hearts at the moment. So now we got something. So now we got the fire rod. It allows us to burn this part. Now here's the main part of Skullwoods. Fire rod is a lot more useful than the lamp, because you actually have to burn torches in long distances like that, and you kill these mummies in one hit. Ugh. Those yellow beams right there, they can turn you into a bunny if you get hit by them. Careful. Oops. Alright, and coming up we have a really hard boss. So, let's see how things go. Okay, good. The joke behind that is that it's actually really easy in this version. So what I tried to do was I tried to set up for a quick kill, where if you set it up right, then Mothula will run into your spin attack 2 times. We call that a double spin, and that basically ends the fight within like a few seconds, which is really fast. But I didn't get it. But either way, Mothula is still really easy in this version. You have to do that fight a little bit differently in the SNES version, because Mothula does not take spike damage at all. If he's hovering above the spikes, then Mothula will take 0 damage. Which is why the fight's harder in SNES. But thankfully, we don't have to worry about that in this version. All right, so now coming up, we're gonna go ahead and oops. That's unlucky right there. Sometimes that's pretty random if that guy hits you or not. That's unlucky. And that's really bad because you want to have full hearts coming into this next dungeon. Oops. But that's okay. There's a technical strat that saves time in our next dungeon, but it's fine. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and go to Zora's River and get ourselves flippers. And flippers will, well, obviously allows us to swim, because Link doesn't swim in a typical Zelda game. Well, he doesn't swim well in a typical Zelda game. So it's nice that we gotta pretty much boost him up and teach him how to swim. And we got the Quick Medallion. It's the first out of 3 medallions that we're gonna be getting. And Quick is actually really important for opening up a later dungeon. And it costs 500 rupees to get flippers. That's pretty expensive. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and head over here to this path, get our next heart piece, and then we'll be on our way to our next dungeon. Our next dungeon is known as Ice Palace, and that's supposed to be your 5th Dark World dungeon. And Ice Palace is hated by a lot of people. I actually, in my honest opinion, like Ice Palace. It has some really cool design. Oops. Okay. Okay, here we go. Ice Palace. It's very technical, and it features the biggest time saver in the entire run. It's so huge that if you miss it, then that's the end of your run. Because the normal way you're supposed to go about with Ice Palace is you need the item from the 2nd Dark World dungeon, which I don't have as of right now. So whatever shall I do about that? Well, you're gonna see later on. Oopsies. And actually, this trick is pretty good because the intended route for this dungeon takes 10 minutes. And we don't like going through that process. Okay. So there's an item in Ice Palace called Blue Mail that we get. It's an armor upgrade, but we don't go for it because the process of it takes a long time, and because we get a better suit armor anyway. So we just skip it altogether. Though it will make later dungeons hard. Okay, hold on. This. Okay, good. So that's the biggest time saver right there. You want to make sure the pegs are up like that, and it just sequence breaks pretty much the rest of the dungeon, which is very useful. So that saves like 5 minutes or something like that. Really big. I can tank through that, which is faster to tank through that, but I am gonna save my hearts for the boss, because the boss actually does a lot of damage without Blue Mail. So I'm gonna be a little bit safe about that. If you're doing this, this block is actually different in this version. Actually, Ice Palace is different in this version. Unfortunately, you won't get to see the changes here. That's probably the only change you'll ever see. But the rooms are different for the most part. But it doesn't change the route for. Oopsies. Okay, good. Okay, it doesn't change the route for it doesn't change the speedrun route at all from SNES. It's still the same. So that was Cold Stare. Cold Stare actually does 4 hearts of damage if you get hit by him without blue mail, and so for a lot of new runners, this is a scary fight. But in 100%, since you have a lot of health, it shouldn't be that bad. But things can still go wrong. I tried to do a quick kill right there, but he got away from me. But that's okay. So it takes 8 Fire Rod shots to break his ice in the first phase. And that is basically the amount of a full magic bar without half magic. So you want to be very careful about that. Okay, so here is the trick that requires a lot of intentional damage coming up right now. You're normally supposed to have an item called the Cape, but we're not going to get that until much later. Oh my gosh. So let's see what happens from here. Oops. Oh my gosh. Blocking a lot. I don't think that's good. Oh, yeah. So, if you have really good movement, then you can survive with 1 heart. So a lot of runners usually go for a fairy for this trick. But either way, that's okay. So we got the item Cane of Burna, and it's a completely optional item. It defends you from taking damage, so it's similar to Nairu's Love from Ocarina of Time. Oops. Oh man. Yeah, that bully that kicks that pink thing around, he kicks it around in random directions. And that's the first time that's ever happened to me right there. That only loses like half a second. In this version because the tech is fast. So we got Ether. And Ether is needed to open up this next dungeon. What I did there is a quick warp. Depending on the spot that you're standing on when you're warping, then the warping transition is faster for some reason. It's half a second fast for whatever reason. I actually don't know why it works, but it works. It's something I don't really go for a lot, unless I really care. So having full hearts in this dungeon is actually really good. In fact, the boss of this dungeon requires the trick used to defeat this dungeon's boss really fast requires a lot of intentional damage. So we'll see what happens from here. There's something called Zero Cycle in this room, where you can kill all the enemies here before any of the Wizards disappear. That's really hard to do, but that room strat isn't too bad either way. So Misery Mire, which is the 6th Darkwood dungeon, is my least favorite dungeon in the game. I absolutely hate this dungeon with a passion. You're normally intended to have blue mail here, So the enemies here will do a lot of damage. That's something you want to be careful of. Especially the boss. The boss definitely does it packs a punch. That bomb drop is actually really good. I would like to have a lot of bombs, so that's really good that I got that. When a block is moving, you can actually use an item through the blocks while they're moving. So that's not a glitch or anything like that. That's just something that you can manually do. It's really not that hard. Ugh. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and get a really cool item of the dungeon. Oh, what the heck? Okay, that's weird. There's a lot of keys, and just a lot of just a lot of unnecessary areas in this dungeon. Whoa, okay, that's never happened. I've never seen that guy do that before. Okay, because I lost my fairy in a bottle, I'm actually gonna go ahead and pick up another one. Just for safety. Okay, you're normally supposed to have hook shot to make this room easier, but you can just barely squeeze in through. And so now we got the Cane of Samaria, which is actually a really cool item, used in many different ways. Okay. So then now we're gonna go ahead and make our way to the next half of the dungeon. So with the Cane of Samaria, there's a switch here in this room that we need to place it on. Okay. If I was faster enough in that room, I could have just dashed through without those fireballs getting in my way, but it's okay. Okay. Menuing in the GBA version is fast, but it's really weird because your up and down because the cursor actually doesn't go directly up or down if you're going from directly up and directly down. It's kind of strange, but it's something that we just got to deal with. Okay, so now coming up is our next boss, and that is Vitreous. So we'll see what happens from here. Oops. Oh, this is bad. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to opt for a safety strat here. Basically what I was trying to do was, okay. What I was trying to do was I was trying to use the invincibility frames from the goo to spin attack the eyeballs, and it saves a lot of time if you can do it correctly. And but I messed up right there. Those eyeballs can get in your way, which is really annoying, and that's pretty much what happened. They can really cause a lot of problems. If you get hit by any of the eyeballs, you lose 4 hearts of damage. The lightning that Vitreous himself does will do 2 hearts of damage. So it's a very, very hard fight. I hate Misery Mire a lot. So that was a pretty rough dungeon segment, but that's okay. We're just here to have fun, right? Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and grab this next heart piece, and then make our way to our next Dark World dungeon. Before that, as per usual, we're gonna get some items on the way. So the strat that I use against Vitreous is a bit of a safety strat, in exclusive only in 100%, because in any percent you don't go for the Cane of Burn at all. So if you mess that up, then you're pretty much screwed. You have a bit of leeway in this category, because like I said, Cane of Burn allows you to protect yourself from getting damaged. What people would do if they don't feel confident with that strat is they stand on the left side of the corner, and then they just swing their sword out, and they call it a safety corner strat. But in my opinion, I don't think that's a safety corner strat. I don't call it safety corner because it's not really a safety corner, because you can still get screwed. Okay, so we need to have access to this next dungeon. It's pretty strange, but it's a strange way on how we have to open it up. But we have to go into the light world, pull the switch for the water to appear, and then the water will be here in the dark world, which is pretty interesting. So this is Swamp Palace. Oh yeah, I love that strat. So this is Swamp Palace, which is your second Dark World dungeon. Now, because this is your second Dark World dungeon, this dungeon isn't really hard at all, because you'll have a lot of items and you'll have a lot of hearts to survive. However, this dungeon's really frustrating to optimize because there's a lot of little bits of RNG where you can lose little bits of time, and it's pretty frustrating. Like whatever had just happened to me just now with that red thing, with that red jelly being in my way while I was trying to dash. That gets pretty frustrating. And in addition to that, Swamp Palace doesn't really have a lot of ways. Well, you can't really sequence break this dungeon. So it's pretty notorious for being a really boring dungeon. But it's a dungeon that we have to go through, so we just gotta deal with it. Okay, so hopefully that snake... Okay, he shouldn't be in my way now, but sometimes this fire snake will get in your way. He can camp out in the corner of these stairs. Okay, that's pretty unfortunate. But the fire snake can camp out in that corner while I make my way back, and you have no choice but to get hit by it, which is really bad. Okay, so you can leave that switch off if you want, and it's a shortcut to where I'm going, but you'll find out that later on it's not really a shortcut. You actually end up losing time doing that. So we just gotta do it this way. Also, the side ledge that I jumped off of is not there in the SNES version. Okay. You'll see that I'm not getting hit while I'm falling down that hole, and that's because, well, in the Super Nintendo version, when you're falling down a hole, you can actually get hit during your fall animation, which is really frustrating. It's just a glitch that we can't really do much about. Thankfully, it's been taken away in this version. Ah. Okay, so we get one of my favorite items, casually, and that's the hook shot. You can hook onto to things if you just know where to hook shot. This allows us to head our way this way. And hook shot is pretty interesting in the SNES version because you can actually get super speed off the hook shot, which is easier than doing super speed using your sword. But of course, that doesn't matter in this version because we can't do any of that. Okay, so we're almost done here. I'm gonna pick up these just in case. Alright, see if I get this. Nope. Okay, that's fine. You dash at the same frame you're doing a diagonal input right there, you can just dash right through, but I didn't get it. That's fine. One thing that makes this room easier is the fact that you can dive in this version. You can't do that in the SNES version at all. So it makes dodging enemies a lot easier. Come on. You can actually get a 0 cycle on this fight by doing some hook dashes in the Super Nintendo version, but obviously we gotta do it the normal way, the way that the game wants you to do it in this version. But either way, I mean, this method isn't really that much slower anyway. So we got a 1 cycle, which is pretty ideal for Argus. Cycles when he spreads his puffs around. You can actually kill the puffs in 1 hit with the Tempered Sword, which the game doesn't intend you to have the Master Sword since until after. Well, the game doesn't intend you to have Tempered Sword until after your fourth Dark World dungeon, and this is the second dungeon, and so you can pretty much do a lot of damage in these earlier dungeons, which is really nice. That's what I love about doing the dungeons in this particular order. Hopefully I'm in the right spot. Please, that's a good spot. Yes, okay, good. Yes it does, but I don't like that method because it is really hard. Basically what Charberg is talking about, since the chat's not being shown, is he's asking is that you can actually, on the second phase, when Argus drops down, you can actually shoot down 2 fire. You can actually try to get Argus to be trapped in the corner. You can trap Argus in the corner somewhere, shoot 2 fire rod shots, and then do a spin attack. That is really hard to do. It is extremely precise, and I don't go for it. It just loses one cycle, but it's not too bad. I usually go for whatever's consistent. Alright, so with 100 rupees, we use that to grab this big bomb right here. And this big bomb it will help us get 2 really ultimate items. That'll help us a lot in the later half. In fact, in any percent of this version, we go for this. In the Super Nintendo version, you don't go for it at all, if you're really good. Okay, nice. It's important that you don't throw in the wrong item, otherwise you lose a lot of time here. Alright, so we get our arrow upgrade, which is the silver arrows. The silver arrows does a lot of damage. And then we're gonna throw down our sword down, and you cannot actually do this with the Master Sword. You actually have to have a Tempered Sword for this. And then we get our 4th sword upgrade, which is the gold sword. And so now our sword will do maximum damage, which is really good. Now it feels like I can overpower anything. Okay, so now the rest of the segment is cleaning up the rest of Dark World. Hopefully I got this spot correctly. That should be good. For some reason in this version, there is an invisible tile, like an invisible block, on the left and right tiles of this tombstone, which is really strange. I don't know why. Oh, yeah, see? That's the invisible tile right there. And dang. That's not too bad that I got hit right there, because we're about to get a heart refill anyway. That fairy is ugly, indeed. So here's another difference between SNES and GBA. The gold sword can actually break pots. Same with silver arrows. Well, regular arrows can also break pots, but we usually don't use arrows to break pots because we want to use our arrows for other things. So we got the cape, and the cape would normally be used to get the Cane of Burna a lot easier, but we get it now. I'm glad I killed those birds, because those birds do 3 hearts of damage and they can really frustrate you. Okay, so this cave right here requires cape in order to get this heart piece that you might have briefly saw on the top. And you don't need hook shots to go through this. You can just squeeze yourself on the edge like that, just fine. So you can get this heart piece right when you defeat Aghanim, because right when you defeat Aghanim, these lumberjacks will not be cutting this tree down. Instead, they're cutting down a different tree for whatever reason. They just like trees, I guess. So we can get that heart piece. Alright, so now we're just going to go ahead and get our last item to fill up our inventory. And then we'll be on our way to our next dungeon. And that is the Ice Rod. The Ice Rod is really easy to miss, because you only need it, it's only needed for one thing only. And that is the boss of this next dungeon. Alright, so this is our last chance to get screwed over by Boulder RNG. So we'll see what happens from here. Okay, so far so good. Oopsies, okay. Entering this next dungeon with full hearts is really good. Well, assuming I can get there with full hearts. There's still some stuff where I can get hit. Oh yeah, Cape allows you to turn invisible. So it's similar to Burna, but so yeah, it's similar to using the Cane of Burna, pretty much. You can't get hit when you're invisible, which is really good. Okay, so you have to hit the pegs in that particular order for this warping point to appear, and then this is the one use we use Quake, and that's to open up this dungeon. Cape allows you to, well, Cape is a better invincibility item than the Cane of Burna in the SNES version, because in the Super Nintendo version, Cane of Burna causes a lot of lag, and it is a nightmare. Okay, so this is Turtle Rock, which is the 7th Dark World dungeon. And Turtle Rock is really hard. This is it. This is where things will start packing a punch on you, because this is where Blue Mill becomes really useful. But we have a lot of hearts, so we can survive. So you can do some cool strats in that room with the hook shots. But since I already have the cape, I use the cape instead. Okay, hold my sword out because in case this guy gets in my way, because he can. And then we have Pokies, or Hakubaku, as what their official name is called, but we call them Pokies because they look like Pokies. There's a lot of Mario enemies in this dungeon. Oh. Uh-oh. That's bad. Okay. Those chomps can really ruin your day if things go wrong in that room. And, yeah, I would have already been almost dead if this was any percent, but yeah. I think it's cool. It's as cool as Rock's cape. I think any cape item in any video game is really cool. You can put some good use to them. Okay, so it's not faster to do this method, but I use the fire rod to kill his Pokey, because that Pokey can be everywhere sometimes, and so in order to eliminate that, I use the fire rod. He dies slower, but it's definitely very much worth it, in my opinion. It makes things a lot easier. Especially in this room coming up. There's 16 different patterns that these Pokies in this next room will give you. Okay, that's fine. Okay, this is a path that we don't take in any percent at all. But by coming over here, this is one of the more easier heart pieces to miss, because it's way out of your way. You would have to mirror on this path, and first timers don't really usually think to mirror right there, so it's pretty easy to miss it. And this room is actually different in this version. Those are Igors in this version. They are mimics in the SNES version, so you have to do something a little bit different with that room. Okay, so now we're in the second half, and we get the mirror shield in this dungeon, and which you completely skip in any percent because you don't need it. Ooh, okay, that was close. You have to do this room a little bit differently in this version. You have to do a lot of rooms in this dungeon a little bit different in this version, because you'll notice that the GBA screen is smaller than the Super Nintendo screen. So not everything loads at the same time. So you have to pretty much improvise different strats specifically for this version. And so like my strats for bomb jumping is a little bit different as well. And that's because Link is 1 pixel bigger in this version. Okay. So this is the one use of the mirror shield, which is good. Otherwise you have to do something really difficult in any percent. Okay, and we're actually coming up to our boss of this place. And this is Trinex. Trinex is really... It's a little bit of a weird fight in this version due to the fact that you can't use items when a boss is exploding. So when these heads explode whenever I kill them, I can't use my fire rod at all. So I have to wait for that red guy to die, and then I can use my fire rod to burn him. Fire rod actually does damage to the ice head for whatever reason. Ice rod does not do damage to the red head. And then the second phase is really not that hard. Gold Sword really makes this fight really easy. So there we go. Not that hard of a fight. And so coming up is our last dungeon of the game. And that is Ganon's Tower. And Ganon's Tower is extremely painful. But if you know how to optimize it, it is really fun. A lot of things can go really wrong. But let's see what happens. First of all, we're gonna go ahead and head down this way. Down these stairs. and get ourselves our last heart piece. Oopsies, that's not bad. That's not a big deal, because we're gonna get our last heart piece anyway. So getting hit right there, I got hit on purpose right there. It's not that big of a deal. And then our last heart piece, guys. 100%. No, okay. Well, first we need one more item left, and then it's 100%. Alright, here we go. Last dungeon. Get hype, everyone. So we have all 20 hearts, so Ganon's Tower shouldn't be the most difficult thing. Plus I have a fairy as a safety in case something actually does go wrong. Okay, so we're gonna go to the left side. There is a right side that you can go to as well, but you will never see me go to the right side at all because it is ridiculously painful. So some pretty cool strats. Oopsie. Okay. So I use the Cane of Samaria to hit the switch. You can actually do that with the red boomerang, but it's really precise to do. So I just do it this way. It's easier. Okay. Aww. That's fine. You'll notice that sometimes I'm not getting hit by the fire snakes, and that's because their hitbox is only the front of them. Same with lasers, so it's pretty weird, but you can manage it just fine. Okay, so this room is different in this version because Gold Sword can break pots, so if I were to dash on these pots right here, I would break them. So I'm gonna go through this maze. You don't need the fire to light that torch to see the path, but I don't memorize the path, so I just do it this way. It doesn't lose that much time. Alright, and now we're going to fight Light World bosses again, but this time we have items to actually beat them easier. So like, the silver arrows can beat these guys in one hit each. It's the fastest strat to go about with that, but it's a little bit harder to do. Okay, so we got the big key, and we can actually beat the dungeon now. But first off, we're gonna go over here up these stairs. And get this red mail. And that is our final upgrade of the run. And so now we can tank a lot of hits. So 20 hearts, red mail. If you die with 20 hearts and a red mail, then you're probably not good at this game. I say that and then I'm gonna die somewhere. Probably. But we'll see what happens. These mimics are a lot easier to deal with silver arrows and mirror shield. You probably could. I haven't tested that out. Aww. If you're fast enough, you can actually dash through that without taking a hit. That's fine. Aw, okay. Sometimes you can dash that entire cannonball room just fine, but that's RNG, and I didn't get the RNG that'll allow me to do it. But that's okay. All right, so we have 4 pain in the butt rooms in a row. Yeah, good example. So in SNES, we usually try to minimize the amount of uses of silver arrows because silver arrows causes lag, but it is not laggy at all in this version. Ah, come on. There we go. Okay, so we have Land Molas round 2. Not that hard. You can get a 1 cycle but you'd have to be really lucky for that. You don't have to bounce off of something in order to bomb jump. You can actually stand on the very edge of a pit, and then the bomb will propel you forward, but that's a little more precise to do. These two whiz orb rooms are really cool when you do them right, just like that. Okay, so if you mess up in these next two rooms, you could lose a lot of magic, and if you don't have enough magic, then you could lose a lot of time. There's a magic refill on the right pot right there, but I have enough magic, so I'm not gonna pick it up. Half magic, it really makes a lot of things easy. Okay, so we're almost done. Bomb that right there. Oops. And I'm gonna pick this up just in case. And then we have Moldorm round 2, which is a lot easier because you have more room to fight him. And you have the gold sword. In the SNES version, you can actually hover across here and make it easier. And skip the entire fight, which saves 6 seconds if you get it first try. But that is something that we don't go for at all. Alright. And then we have Aghanim round 2, which is easier, but you can still get pretty bad luck here. He doesn't shoot out of lightning this time around, and it's similar to our first time. First attack is a guaranteed energy shot, and then the rest of the fight is just 50-50 for a blue ball. But it doesn't matter because you can use the Aghanim clones to deflect magic, and that was a pretty decent fight right there. Two cycle would be the fastest if you're really lucky, if you don't get a blue ball, and it also depends on the spawns that you get. Okay, and now we have Ganon, which Ganon, in any percent, in the Super Nintendo any percent category, there's some stuff to explain there, but Ganon's pretty self-explanatory since we have the gold sword and silver arrows, which is normally what you're supposed to have by the time you get to Ganon. So it takes 6 hits per phase. He has 4 phases, and it takes 6 hits per phase. We just got through the first phase, now we're going through the second one. These fire bats, depending on how well you do Armos Knights in Ganon's Tower, is the fire bat pattern that you get, which is interesting enough. Now here in the third phase, you can lose a lot of time because Ganon can warp all day long if he wants, and that's really bad. Okay. And fourth phase. So in the SNES version, you do something called Torch Glitch, where you can light the left torch before the right torch goes out, and the right torch will never go out. But that doesn't work in this version at all. Okay, I have to be a little bit safe there because you can fall off. If you fall off, you have to do the fight all over again, and that's not good. And done. So time is when I enter the Triforce room. And that's time. Alright, 1:36:31. That is actually a really good time. I'm really happy with this run. I had a pretty rough start early on during Light World, but I'm really happy with that. Some mistakes here and there. That's fine. So the world record is 1:35:02 by me. So I was plus 1.5 minutes throughout the course of the run. Which is really not that bad. So so yeah.
Yo.
Yo.
Nice run.
Thank you.
That was only like a minute off PB, wasn't it?
Yeah, a minute and a half.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy. So I wanted to get sub 140. That was my original goal of the run. But I had a secret goal in my mind to get sub 137, and there we go. Got it.
And dude, your commentary was on point for sure. That was some really good commentary.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Thank you. So
Next up,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. So